Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay. Okay.
Kavod Harav, we were in the middle of the Yosef, where it says Rabbeinu Yeruham.
All right, let's see. Yeah, okay, I see that. So it says Rabbeinu Yerucham dat Rabbeinu Yerucham achar dat Rosh katav. Says Rabbeinu Yerucham after the opinion of the Rosh, the Rabbat Piresh the Notlin. The Rabbat explains that Notim Shnaim Revi'it. As we said, two people can wash from a Revi'it of water. V'chozrin Mosifin Revi'it acheret, right? And then they add another Revi'it. Clean in the vessel, but notanin al yadehem, and they put on their hand. Let's call it second water. The Masechet Yadayim, like it says in the Tractate Yadayim. So why is that? Because you need Revi'it for each one. But it says the first opinion is the main. So this is like, not the accepted opinion. Rosh. All these rabbis, he says, that's what they said. Also Rambam. The law uzkar mayim shniyim ela litruma. Right. So what are we trying to say here? That, as we already mentioned yesterday, that the Rambam doesn't mention doing a second pouring for mundane foods. So therefore, really, we only require one, and that's halacha. There's also, the rule that we already mentioned that we go lenient in, matters of netilat yadayim. We go like the lenient opinion. So here also same thing. Okay. Right. Also for prayers, he says, right? So if you want to go and pray, So there is a Shulchan Aruch that says before you pray you should wash your hands, but that means only once. That's it, right? You don't have to wash your hands 3 times for prayers. Also, you don't need a cup either, by the way, for prayers. You could do it right from the sink. Okay, good. That's the end of it. Umash katav v'chen nireh merambam. Then what she says, that's what seems from Rambam, eno mechuvan. So he says not really precise. Sharei ladat rosh mayim shniim gam lechulin huzkeru. According to Rosh, he says that there's also second pouring for mundane foods. Kemoshi ba'er, like we're going to explain. Rambam. So he seems to argue with the Rambam, the Rosh. Okay, Rambam mayim mishanim tzarich revi'it. So it says, according to Rambam, you do need revi'it for the first pouring. I'll call panim, right? In any case, Rosh mi revi'it notlin leshnaim. But according to Rosh, we can use that for 2 people. Afilu b'mayim mishonim. Even the first pouring of Efshar, tehag vechen ta'ud soferhu. So it could be that this language is a scribe's error. But okay, that's the end of it. So what's halacha, right? Bottom line, we saw here, 2 main approaches, right? More or less. So what's the bottom line? So he says, it seems like we passed into Rashba. He says, the Kamaravat, also several rabbis that go the same way. The Sabre Kebate, that they hold like the Rashba. Again, right? We said we're going to be lenient. So that's the way it is here as well. So, that pretty much seems to say that we don't require 2 pourings for mundane foods. So as we said, right, the custom to do 2 or 3 is just a custom, but the main halacha really is 1. So, right, if you have a shortage of water, you can just do 1. It's fine. If you have a small cup, whatever, you can just do 1, and you're good. You're good to go. So let's see what else we got here. I'm just trying to see here. Okay, so this was Yud Daled. Yeah, so this is like goes towards the end of the chapter. Okay, but there's also another one after that. Anyway, so what else we got here? It says further on, Katav Rabbeinu Shimshon, right? It says the Rabbeinu Shimshon, the Mishnah, and Kamait in the first Mishnah, Masechet Yadayim. Tanya b'Tosefta, right? We learned in the Tosefta, Shanayim Shanatlu Shtei Yadehem, 2 people, right, that washed 2 hands. In other words, both their hands. So altogether, that's four hands. Mishminit, right? So what happened? Each one used like a half of the cup, right? So if that was a revi'it, that means that each one used like 1.5 ounces. Oh, okay. Even though he says they go back and mix it up in the stream, Yedehem Tameot, their hands are not clean. They're impure. The mitchila lo atlu miravi'it. Why? Why is that? Because at the beginning they didn't wash miravi'it. They didn't start with the ravit. Ela postin yedehem perush shnei kelim shem lechol echad ki'im shnimit. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a case where they have 2 very tiny cups, right? Shot glasses, right? Basically. So each one has this shot glass, and the problem is that they only have right half a revi'it in there. So each one has an ounce and a half, right? So therefore, it just doesn't do the job there because they didn't start with a revi'it. Each one had a half a revi'it, which is 1.5 ounces. Okay, so both of them are have not done the job here, right? Even though technically they did wash their hands, but just not enough water there, to do the job. Okay, thank God, that we have plenty of water, Baruch Hashem. So we don't have these issues today, Baruch Hashem. Okay, so anyway, it goes on here. כי אם השמיד דהיינו רביעית בין שניהם, האלו השניים לא נטל כל אחד עם ידו אחד ובת אחד שפכו משתי כלים על שתיהן שהקילוח מתערב. Right, so what happened was that they put like a trick over here, these guys, What was the trick? That they took like two shot glasses and they poured both of them, on their hands, like together. But that doesn't work. Why? Because even though you have a revi'it all together, but the problem is each vessel is not holding a revi'it, and therefore it doesn't work. That's what he's saying. Okay, good to know. Let's go on. So then he says, "B'katab be'orchot chaim." Says in his book, B'shem Rashba, name of the Rashba, צריך שיהיה הרביעית מכונס במקום אחד, שאם נטל שמינית וחזר ונטל שמינית, ידיו טמאות כשהיו עד כאן, right? So same thing as he's saying here, right? Which is that, listen, don't pull this trick. Don't do half and half, right? Because you got to have it every eat in one cup. Otherwise, it's no good. It doesn't work, right? So one little shot glass, it's not going to go. Even though you have the same amount of water, technically, right? But that's not the issue. Okay. So let's go to Shulchan Aruch. Here we go. Yeah. So says Shulchan Aruch, צריך שיהיה הרביעית מכונס במקום אחד. You have to have a רביעית in one place. שאם נטל משמינית, because if you have two places, right, two vessels, two shot glasses, not gonna go. וחזר ונטל משמינית. And he took, he did like one after the other, whatever, you use both of them, right? Doesn't do the job. ידיו טמאות כשהיו. So therefore his hands are impure. Okay, good. That's pretty straightforward. So we'll go to 15, the next one, Tetvav. Let's see the two bit Yosef here. Okay, so it says here, he brings the Bet Yosef here. It says Uberesh Perek Bet Mishnah Bet. And so it says in the beginning of Perek Bet. Right, so what does that mean? Of Masechet Yadayim. Katav Od, right? Rabbeinu Shimshon says the Rabbeinu Shimshon. Furthermore, Tanya Echad Hanotel Yado Echad veEchad Hanotel Shtei Yadav. Doesn't matter whether you're washing two hands or one hand. Right? Yado shel gadol veEchad yado shel katan. So it doesn't matter whether it's a katan or gadol. What does that mean? Adult or a child? Ve'echad yado shel katan. Tzarich litol merevit. You still have to have a revit. Right. So there you go. Right. Doesn't really matter. So look what he's saying. Right. Even if you're washing only one hand, you still need a revit. You have to start. That's the starting point. Minimum. You can't go below that. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, this rabbi says, Rashbag, שתי ידיו של שניים נדונות כשני אנשים. So he says, two hands of two people, it's like two people, what does that mean? Kids at how so? שניים שנטלו לשתי ידיהן. Two people who wash both their hands, מרביעית from one רביעית, לא יחזור בשני ויטול ידיו משירה. So now the second one cannot come and wash his hands from the remainder, the leftovers, רביעית of the רביעית. פירוש צריך ליטול מרביעית שהוא בכלי רביעית. So that means that you have to use, as we said, right, the water, which is a revi'it, which is the volume, and also with a utensil that holds a revi'it. So it can't be a shot glass. Watch out. Right, so nidonot kishnei anashim. So we're judging like two people. What does that mean? כמו שמפורש כיצד לא יחזור השני ויטול ידיו. So what does that mean? That the second guy cannot wash his hands from there. כלומר, ידו השנייה דמתחילה לא נטל אלא ידו האחד. Right, so it says that means it's talking about his second hand, because he only washed the first hand from that cup which had the revi'it. But now for the second hand, there is no revi'it. וזאת השנייה נעשית כיד אדם. So it says this one becomes now like this second hand that he didn't wash becomes like a third person, as if. That meaning what? That it doesn't work for him. So he says, but the rule is, right, that when it comes to Revi'it, two people can wash, but not three. Three is too much. Okay. The whole Zekatab Rashba says all this is written in the Rashba, but Torah Tabait, in his book Torah Tabait. Vezel Shanor Revi'it, this is the language of the Rashba. Revi'it Shamru ben Shnotel Shtei Yadav ben Notel Yadav Shel Gadol. Right, so same thing is saying, right, that when they said Revi'it, they're talking about two hands, one hand, right, adult, child, it doesn't matter, right, it's all the same. Yador Shel Katan Natlo Shne Bnei Adam. What about two people? Ze Yado Echad Veze Yado Echad. One did one hand, one did one hand. And then the second guy now comes and does the second hand. So now we have it's like three people, even though it's only two. Why? Because they're doing now a separate washing with the other hand. So it's not going to work. So he says, therefore, if there was in the vessel, right, half a lug, which is 6 ounces, then his hands will be pure. If not so, En yadav en yad hashniya Torah. So then the second hand is not going to be pure, only the first hand. Because we're not allowed to do less than half a lug. Yoter mishne bnei adam. If you have more than two people, three people. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the end of it. Okay, beautiful. So I guess that's the end of the chapter. So we'll see the Shulchan Aruch here, and we're done with this chapter. Okay. לפני שולחן ערוך, רביעית שאמרו בין לידיו של גדול, בין לידיו של קטן. That which we said, רביעית, it applies to adult or a minor, doesn't really matter. נטלו בין בני אדם, זה ידו אחד וזה ידו אחד. If it was two people, right, and they washed one hand, both them, ואחר כך חזר השני ונטל ידו השני. And then, the second guy now washed the second hand, הרי כגימו ביניהם, it's like three people here. So therefore, if the vessel has a half a lug, then it's going to work, right? It'll be good because three people can use, right, 6 ounces. That's good enough. If not so, if it doesn't have that much, so then the second hand is not going to work. Because we only wash when it's less than half a lug, which is less than 6 ounces, you'll turn Mishneh B'nei Adam, two people, more than two people. Okay, that's it. All right, that's the end of it. Okay, we're done. So let's see what we got in the next chapter. This one I will delete. So just to remember, this was Kuf Samech, right? So now we're going to go to Kuf Samech Aleph. Casa. You know what that means in Spanish. I'm not going to tell you. Okay, so. Yeah. So let's see the tour. Says the tour over here. This is an important chapter. You see, there's a lot of interesting and important things here. What are we talking about here? We're talking about chatzitza, right? Which is very relevant when it comes to washing your hands, and it's also very relevant when it comes to immersing in the mikveh, right? David, you ever been in the mikveh, David? He's listening? Okay, we're not getting him yet. All right, maybe he'll react later on. Okay. I know all of us have been in the mikveh, except I'm not sure about David. Anyway, right, so we're talking about interposition, right? Chatzitza is interposition. So what does that mean? That means that something is on your skin which is not allowing the water to get in. That's called chatzitza, right? So that's why, you guys know, right, that when we do conversions, we want to have, especially the lady, right, with a robe, because, we don't want it to be, right, indecent, right, exposure, right? So we want the lady to go in with a robe. By the way, you know where I got this idea from? With the robe, that the lady goes in with the robe. This was from Maran, my rabbi. I heard it from him. He says that we put him in with robes. So, but he said it has to be a loose robe, cannot be tight.
Isn't it in Shulchan Aruch?
No, not the robe. The robe
okay, I thought I read it somewhere though.
Yeah, it's not in the Shulchan Aruch, the robe. This is a modern invention, whatever you want to call it. By the way, now that you brought that up, the question is, why isn't it there? You know, in other words, what do you want to see the lady naked? What are you? You know, what kind of thing is that? Right? So what's the answer? You know, I have the answer. So the answer is that in those days, you know, the water in the mikveh was turbid, so you couldn't really see inside there. You know, so once you got into the mikveh, you couldn't see her body, so it was okay. You know, but nowadays, you know, we got the clear water, right? So now we got a problem. That's why we use the robes. You know, what can you do? You gotta go. You gotta go with the times, as they say. You know, that's the way it goes in life. So anyway, right? Why do I mention the robes? Because you know you have to make sure the robe is loose. The robe is loose. You know, if it's too tight, it's no good. Okay. So anyway, right? Because otherwise the water won't get in. Okay. So anyway, let's move on. So that's what we're talking about here, right? The interposition when it comes to washing hands, which is very similar, as we said, right, to the mikveh issue. Okay. We're going to see the parallels, right, being drawn from one to the other as we move on. Uh, so, um, so he says, right, that's the first thing he starts with, right? Exactly, right? Whatever interposes when it comes to immersion also interposes when it comes to washing your hands. Same thing, right? So we see from there that when you wash your hands, you shouldn't have anything tight on your hands, you know? We're going to talk about, by the way, you know, those rings, right, that people like to wear. We're going to get into that, you know, rings. Do you have to remove the ring when you wash your hands? Yes, no, maybe. Right? We'll see. We'll see how that moves, how that goes. So anyway, right? אם יש לו בצק תחת הציפורן, חוצץ, right? So he says that if you have under your nail, right, fingernail, you have there a dough, some dough. You know why? Because you're like, you know, you're a woman, and you know you like to bake bread, right? Oh, of course, you know, right? Make challahs and stuff. So, you know, in the old days, all the ladies made challah. You know, now we go to the store. You know, not everybody makes challah. Maybe 50-50. You know, some ladies do, some ladies don't. Each one has his own thing. You know, whatever. Anyway, right? So so if you have a dough under the finger nail, right? That's a problem. That interposes. That's what he's saying. So you know, when you're making challah, right? Don't go to the mikveh afterwards, or make sure you clean your fingernails very well, right? File them down, whatever you want to do there, right? Whatever it is you want to do. So ואם יש לו בצק תחת הציפורן, חוצץ, אפילו הוא כנגד הבשר. So he says that's even if it's right corresponding to the skin, the flesh. So what does he mean to say by that? You know, when you look at your nails, right? There is a part of your nail which is like over the flesh, you know, over the skin, and there is a part which is like over the air, you know. So what he's telling you is that even if it's over the skin, it still can interpose, you know, even there. So that's why we tell, you know, the ladies, you know, before they go to the mikveh, we tell them, make sure your nails are all clean, right? And, you know, you cut your nails and all that good stuff, right? So you don't have these problems. There's a whole discussion, by the way, you know, about, you know, women who use nail polish, right? You know, are they allowed to go to the mikveh like that? Or is it a problem? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So the answer is we do allow them, you know, but we discourage that. Why is that? Because you know the minhag is custom is that when ladies immerse in a mikveh after nida, right? They're supposed to cut their nails. That's the custom, you know. So if they're using nail polish, they can't keep that custom. So we try to discourage them and tell them, listen, like maybe you can become a little bit more religious, and get rid of your nail polish. And if she doesn't want to listen to you, it's okay. Don't push her too much, right? They say, why? Why not push her too much? Because if you do, she may never come back to the mikveh again. She's gonna be like, oh, this lady is so rude. She doesn't let me do what I want. She tells me to cut my nails. My nails are so beautiful. Yeah, yeah, but so that's why we don't want to scare them too much. So we suggested to them. But if they refuse, we don't push it. We don't pursue the matter. Right, till the end. We don't go till the end. That's what it is, right? Like make believe you don't see it. Okay, so that's what we do. Um, but when it comes to the dough, that's a different story, right? The dough is not like the nail polish. What's the difference, by the way? You guys know? Anybody know?
Can you repeat the question?
Why does the dough under the nails, right, interpose, but the nail polish does not? Very simple question, right? So the answer is, right, once we learn these halachot, you're going to know all this stuff very well, right? But the answer is because the nail polish, you want it there, right? But the dough, you don't want it there, right? Who wants to have dough under his nails? I mean, he doesn't want it. He wants his nails to be clean. But the nail polish, that's the whole point, right? He wants it there. She wants it, right? So, that's a big difference, right? You do want it, you don't want it. Okay. So let's go on. I remember one time, a friend of mine over here, he lives in Queens, like 15, 20 years ago. When I came back here, to visit from Jerusalem, he invited me for Shabbat. He has a nice family, whatever. He had a nice family. So, his parents and stuff. So, we came there. Mother is a great cook, right? She makes incredible food for Shabbat, Georgian food. Georgian food, whoever knows how to cook Georgian food, it's really good stuff. So anyway, right? I'm like, having a good time with the Georgian food, and then Shabbat there with them, right? But the thing is, they're pulling out like these, Georgians like they like crystal glass, they're into crystal. So, they pull out their crystal, the Georgian crystal, whatever, right? So, but one thing I noticed with the crystal is that, it still has a tag on it. The tag is still there. The thing that sticks on the glass, right? The tag, with the glue and everything, So I'm like looking at this, like, how do they put this in the mikveh, with the tag? I'm thinking to myself, this glass, how do they do it? But the truth is, later on, once I get a little bit wiser, I learn a little bit more in halacha, then I realized, right, that it can be okay that, So why is that? For the same reason I just told you, right, with the nail polish. Because if you want that tag on it, because it looks cool to you, like, it makes you feel like, very, austere, important, like, whatever, very, you're like, high class, whatever, because you got that tag. So, if you like the tag and you don't want to remove it, so then you could put it to the mikveh like that. It's true. That's the way it works. Okay, very good. So, I'm just explaining to you guys some things, some interesting things. Okay, so let's get into a little bit. So we said, right, was regarding the dough. Now he's talking about other things, right? Which is to'ah, right? Which is like excrement, In other words, this lady, right, whatever, or this guy, right? He's wiping with his hands. In those days they didn't have toilet paper. So it could be that there was some excrement left under the nails. Not very pleasant to listen to that, but right, in those days it was something that happened. It can happen today also, but it's more rare, obviously, because we have paper and stuff, whatever. So anyway, right. So he says, right, that what about that? Does that interpose? Right. So he says if it's not corresponding to the skin, then it does interpose. But if it's not corresponding to the skin, in other words, it's in the air, corresponding to the air, the airspace, whatever, right? Then it does not interpose. Interesting. So we'll see why that is, right? We'll figure all that out. So he says, but if he's not particular about it at all, right, then it doesn't, right? It's exactly what we just said, right? If you don't mind that it's there, it does not interpose. So when we say it does interpose, we're talking about people who mind these things, Otherwise, it's okay. Just like with the nail polish, right? We said, because you don't mind it, Dafka, you want it there. You want to show it off, right, to people, tell them, show them how pretty your hands are, whatever, right? So then it's okay, because you want it there. Okay, good. So let's go on. So let's see Bit Yosef, right? Let's catch up a little bit here. Okay, so here we are, Bit Yosef, new chapter. So it says here, right, it brings a source for these things, which is the Braita Per Kol Basar, right, over there, in Chulin, Kufa Amud Bet. So this is the rule that we learned there in the Gemara, right? Again, to reiterate, what's the rule? The rule is whatever interposes for immersion in the mikveh also interposes for your hands as well, for washing your hands. So let's go on a little bit. It says because furthermore, then we're talking about the dough, right? So he brings the source for that. Ken katav rosh. It says in the Rosh, Sham shano, right? The language of the Rosh. The chol chotzetz b'tfilah, chotzetz b'nitilah. Right. Again, whatever interposes for immersion also interposes for the hands. Kigon. So like excrement, right? As we said, right? Which is under the nail. Shelok keneged basar, which is not corresponding to the skin, the finger. And also, as we said, right, the dough, which is under the nail. Afilu keneged basar, even if it's corresponding to the flesh or the skin or whatever. Also, he says a dressing, that you have on your skin. Also, that will do the job as well. So we're talking about dressing. Like that's what people put on when they have like a wound on their hand, whatever, right? Some kind of a cut. So that would also interpose, because what happens is that it dries. It kind of like becomes like very sticky. So it doesn't allow the water in. Okay, what else we got here? Then he says, petita yaben, right? Also, there's a type of clay, types of clays that they also are very sticky, and they don't allow the water to get in. So he brings you two types of clay, right? Which is called tita yaven and tita yotzrim. One is talking about the clay for the pottery, pottery clay, and one is talking about yaven, which is I think it's something in the water, or whatever, something like that. I'm not. We'll figure that out. Anyway, right? About b'miutan sheno makpid, but it says if it's something which is like the minority of the hand, and he's not particular, as we said, right? He doesn't mind it. then we're not concerned, right? And then we're coming back right to the nail polish, same thing, right? Okay. Like it says in the first Perek Eruvin, Dal Amud Bet, Ve'afilu shepiresh Rashi. So even though Rashi explained the dafka bashar aval lo bebasar b'se'ar, right? So Rashi said that only applies to this hair, but not to the skin. If Shalom Markim, but he says you cannot say like that. Like Rabbeinu Tam, right? Argued with Rashi. The Tana Nami, right? And also it says Revav Abesaro. It's also there's a right Mishnah which says that if you have a right some kind of stain right on your flesh, chotzetz, it does interpose. So what are we talking about? Like it's some kind of grease or something like that, grease stain. ואם מוכר רבב הוא אינו חוצץ. So he says if it's some kind of a stain, it doesn't interpose. I'm not sure what that means, but we'll see. Okay, that's the end of it. Okay, that's the end of who. That was the Rosh. Okay, that was the Rosh. Okay, very nice. So let's go on a little bit. So it says, that's what's also said Tosfot, same thing. V'chen dat Rambam, most of Rambam seems to say like that as well. Perek Aleph Minchot Mikvaot, and laws of Mikvaot. V'katav Rashba b'dinei Tefillah. So says Rashba regarding the rules of Tefillah, of immersion. What does this mean, right? We said it corresponds to the skin or not, right? Haya atziporen gadol. So it means like this, he says, right? Let's say your nails are long, right? So as we said, right, it's all going like past your skin, and it's like over the airspace, like the ladies do, their nails are long, right? Relatively speaking, right? Whatever it is. So he says if if that excrement is under that place where it's hanging over the air, right? That's called, it's not corresponding to the skin, right? So that's better. It's more kosher than the one which is corresponding to the skin, as we said, when it comes to excrement. Okay, so anyway, what else we got here? Okay, this goes for a long time. We're not going to finish this today, so I guess we'll. Oh, wait 1 second. Maybe it does. Oh, I think I made a mistake. 1 second. Yeah, it's not that long, actually. It's not that long. So anyway, let's see what we can do here. Actually, it is. It is. Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever. חוצץ, מיעוטו, היד, חוצץ. So we did the Rashba just now, and so we'll just do a little bit more and we'll stop. It says like this. Upashutu shema shekatav Rabbeinu. So it says it's clear that which Rabbeinu wrote, the Tur. Ve'im eno makpid alav, that he's not particular about it. Enochot says that it doesn't interpose. Lo kaya letzo'ah, shekeneged habasar. So it says not talking about the excrement, which is over the flesh. The samichle ela abatzek אפילו כנגד הבשר, והצואה שלא כנגד הבשר. תפסק בהו דחוצצין כאלה, דהיינו דווקא כשמקפיד על כך, אבל אם אינו מקפיד עליו כיוון במיעוט היד הוא אינו חוצץ. So let me just reiterate this in English. So it says Beit Yosef like this. He says it's very clear, right, and very simple. That which a two wrote, that if he's not particular about it, doesn't interpose. He said it's not talking about the case of the excrement, which is corresponding to the flesh. The samichle ala batzek ala batzek. It's only going on the it says the dough, right, but not the excrement. Afilu keneged habasar, even if it's next to the skin. בצבא של צואה כנגד הבשר פסק בו תחוצצין. כאלה ממר דהיינו דווקא כשמקפיד על כך, אבל אם אינו מקפיד עליו, כיוון דמיעוט היד הוא אינו חוצץ. Let me just make sure I got this straight. אינו בצק בהו, הצואה שלא כנגד הבשר פסק בהו תחוצצין. דהיינו דווקא כשמקפיד. Right, so basically what he's saying is like this, that, you know, what we said, right, we said a general rule, which is that if he's not particular, it's okay. But he says it's not really referring to the case of the excrement, which is, you know, next to the, corresponding to the skin. So why is that? Because that we said, right, that you know, the it's not really a problem, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not going on that. So what is it going on? He says it's going on the case where you have the dough, right, under your fingernails. That's one thing. And also if you have the excrement that is not corresponding to the skin. So in those cases, if you're not particular, it's okay. Okay, very good. So I guess we'll stop there. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. We'll see you tomorrow. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch. Keep praying for our valiant soldiers. You know, after all, we're in a time of war. You know, this war has been going on for a year, but they say it's going to go for another year, you know, so looks like we'll be praying for quite a while. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
Thank you so much.
God bless. All the best.
Thank you, Rabbi. And also prayers for Florida, for the hurricane right now.
Oh, yes. Hashem should redirect the hurricane to Hezbollah.
Thank you.
And save you from.
We want Brudia safe from that hurricane.
Amen. God bless.
Thank you.
I'm sure she'll be fine. I trust. I believe that Hashem will save her.
Yes.
Thank you, God. Thank you.
God bless.